It's time to kick ass and chew bubble gum.
Yes, we would like to have a meet you in the tower.
Velkommen til The Bear Talk Show. Podcasten, hvor vi går helt tæt på succesfulde inspiratorer og iværksættere, så du kan lære, hvordan de skaber deres succes. Her kommer din vært, Bjørn Vestergaard Barfod.
So guys, welcome to the Bear Talk podcast. My name is Bjørn. I'm your host on this show where we, on each episode, have the purpose of finding the most inspirational, motivational, and to be honest, cool people, just interviewing them, finding out their best secrets, their best strategies for creating a successful life and creating a successful business. That is why the guest today is a perfect fit for the Bear Talk podcast. Just a quick note before we get started. If you haven't figured out by yet, this episode will be in English. The reason is pretty simple, I would say, because the guest of today's episode is Allen Brouwer. Allen is American living in New Jersey, and he doesn't speak any Danish, so it's pretty obvious that we're going to have this discussion in English. But if you can live with that, we are actually on to having a really, really great conversation, and I really enjoyed shooting this with Allen on Skype because it was really so much substance of what we were talking about was personal business, about personal development, about building a very, very cool business. So, if you do not know Allen, you have definitely something interesting incoming because Allen is a really inspirational guy and I really tried hard to get him on the podcast because, in my opinion, he has a really cool story to share and he really, really delivers in this episode where we talk a lot about creating success both in your business but also in your life. The thing is, if you do not know Allen, he is an American, as said, and he is an entrepreneur who built a business called My Best Self, and he made the Self Planner, which for me is actually a tool I have been using quite a bit. I find it really, really a cool product, and for me, the reason why I wanted to have Allen on, I can explain a little bit about the Self Journal later, but the main reason why I had Allen on was because the Self Planner is just such a cool product, and their history behind the product is awesome as well, because basically he co-founded the company together with his business partner Cathryn. What their main idea was basically that it can be really difficult sometimes to achieve your goal, especially if you live in a really, really busy environment and a busy time. Oftentimes getting down to getting the right goals done and actually achieving the goals is having the right strategy, having the right tools to help you. And that was what they did when they created the Self Planner, which basically is a 3-month journal that helps you get your goals by doing daily journaling and by giving you the right tools to actually keep you on track with achieving your goal. And I find the product really, really cool indeed, and the story behind it is great. I mean, they were actually building a few other businesses and they just kind of felt that it didn't really work out that well. And one of the reasons was because they simply lacked the tools to create the proper plan and actually execute it. And that's the reason why they built the Self Journal. And they launched it as a Kickstarter project, and it just took off from there. And it's been a crazy ride. I think they've been on now for 3 to 4 years, and they have gone from a Kickstarter project to selling to more than 100 different countries, and as said, it's a multi-million-dollar business, so it's going really, really well. On top of that, Allen helps other entrepreneurs. He runs a few businesses where he shares his knowledge of building a business. Also, actually, I forgot to say that the Self Journal has been nominated and won the Shopify Build a Business contest twice in a row. So that means that they have gone to Fiji Island actually and had private mentoring from the likes of Tim Ferriss and Tony Robbins and such. So it's a really cool story for Allen and his co-founder Cathryn. So you really have a lot of things to talk about. For me, the reason why I had Allen on was that I just find the story super, super inspirational, and that sometimes for me, the entrepreneurship part it's almost about like self-development, I would say, and sometimes these things go really, really, really tight hand in hand, and they definitely do for Allen and with the product of the Self Journal. So as you can hear, we are in for a really, really interesting episode. What we will be discussing in today's episode will be a lot of different interesting topics, like how to build a multi-million dollar business, how systems can really help you leverage your business, and obviously also what Allen has learned from his journey and what he's learned from getting private mentoring from some of the best business coaches in the world. So we actually cover a lot of ground. Also, like, how do you make the perfect morning routine and how to launch a successful Kickstarter campaign? As you might be able to hear from this, there are tons of topics we will be covering, and I'm not going so much more into it. I'm just going to say that I have been really looking forward to sharing this conversation with you. I really enjoyed talking to Allen, and I hope you enjoy the conversation as well. Enjoy the show. So, Allen, my man, welcome to the Bear Talk podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me.
I am thrilled to have you on, and I'm looking so much forward to recording what I expect to be a really, really good podcast.
Yes, me too.
Awesome, buddy. Actually, Allen, I'm going to go a little different way this time with this podcast. Usually, we would have more of an introduction style, but actually, I want to front load this episode a bit by asking this first question, because I know that you have been studying a lot of really successful people in order to create the self-journal, which we will come back to later. But if you were to say the 3 most important habits and routines that separates the ultra-high achievers from people achieving like average results, what would these routines and habits be in your experience?
There's several routines and habits. The biggest one is taking daily consistent action. So depending on whatever it is that you're working on, whatever it is that you're doing on a daily basis, whether it's marketing or whether it's sales or whether it's working in a job or running a team, whatever it may be, is just taking daily action and not procrastinating or not or thinking about other things that you should be doing. The second thing would be to have a routine that you do on a consistent basis. So the easiest way to take daily consistent action is to have a routine that allows you to take that daily consistent action on a consistent basis. And people are like, oh, well, what routine should I put in place? A simple routine to put in place would be something like a morning routine or an evening ritual that you have to start or end your day on the right foot. So if we take a morning routine for example, it's how can I set my day up first thing in the morning so I can propel myself to knock out the biggest task on my list, or the biggest thing that to propel the business forward on my list first. One book that we've modeled and have taken a lot of our framework from, as far as how we structure our morning routines, we being Cathryn, my business partner, and myself, is a book called The Miracle Morning. And that helps break down why a morning routine is so vital for anyone trying to do something big or something great. And the way that I like to explain it is, how can I cover my mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being in the morning first thing? So when you have the 4 levers that you pull and the 4 levels of well-being that you tap first thing in the morning, it doesn't matter what else that you work on. You can focus on just getting straight down to business. And you're not worried about anything else because the important stuff's already handled.
That makes a lot of sense, Allen. And one elaborate question I have about this is I mean, we all know from like Tony Robbins has really emphasized how important it is to have a really good morning routine, and it seems that a lot of the really successful people, as you mentioned, really start out by winning the day basically in the morning with their routine. One thing I have experienced on myself and I heard from others as well talk about is basically that sometimes, I mean, in the morning a lot of things happens like there you are probably, I mean, you travel a lot yourself and sometimes you're just in a situation where, I mean, the mornings are maybe not as regular as you want them to be, so it can be hard to have like a fitness routine and that going on. Do you have any experience or solution from the people you have studied and from your own life to handling this problem with different kind of mornings, basically?
Absolutely. So one of my mentors tells me to always have 3 plans. And plan A would be, as long as everything is perfect and you have enough time in the world and everything goes according to plan, and you could fit the most perfect morning routine in. You go to the gym for an hour and a half, then you follow that up with like a sauna, and then you do some half-hour meditation, and then you read or consume some audio or something along those lines, and you eat healthy. Like, if you had all the time in the world, that would be plan A. Then there should be a backup plan. Plan B. Okay, so what happens if I only have, 50% of that time? Do I have a routine that I can put in place where I can get, 50% of the output or whatever I can get during that routine? And this goes for a lot of things. Routines, the way that you operate in business, how you operate meetings, how you have calls, how you batch emails, so on and so forth. So, okay, so maybe I don't go to the gym for an hour and a half, but maybe I do a specific workout routine that allows me to do a high-intensity training workout in 30 minutes. And then I can do a 15-minute meditation rather than a 30-minute meditation. And then so on and so forth. Right? All the way down to, okay, plan C, where if I was traveling and I was in a hotel room and, I don't have any of my normal surroundings and stuff that I deal with on a morning basis. Okay, what is the 80-20 that I can get out of this? What's the 20% of input that will allow me to get 80% of the output? Well, maybe it's doing like a 7-minute workout routine that you have on your app, on your phone. And then maybe it's a 10-minute meditation, and then that's it. That's all you can fit in, but it hits a majority of those things in a short amount of time, and you don't need your gym, your sauna, your kitchen for the food that you're cooking, like all that different stuff. You don't need it because you stripped it down to the bare essentials. So it's having a plan A for ideal situations, a plan B for like the backup, and then a plan C for like worst case scenario. Yeah. Now the key here is don't fall back on plan C. Make plan A your standard and only go backwards if need be.
That makes a lot of sense for sure, Allen. So besides having a really good morning routine, what other habits do you see the really ultra high achievers also having? So what they'll have is a goal setting system in place. They'll either write their goals down or visualize their goals, or you could do it like Cathryn and I do it, and it's literally mapping out our goals, where we deconstruct our goals. Okay, we have a big goal that we want to hit. How do we break that down into daily action items? And a vast majority of highly successful people do this on a consistent basis. They hit a goal, and then they'll pick a new goal and work their way backwards so they know what they have to do each and every day to get to that goal. What skills do they need to introduce it in themselves? What team member do they need to get there? What do they need to level up in order to hit that goal and make that goal a reality? So goal setting is a huge one. And we can see that as well, and I think we will come back to this a bit later when we talk about the self journal, right? So we talked about like 3 habits. So we have the morning routine, we have the goal setting as well. What else?
What else? I think having a daily gratitude ritual is extremely important. So like having things that you're grateful for in the morning that you write down. I am grateful for X, Y, and Z because of X, Y, and Z is extremely beneficial, because it just sets your frame of mind into a positive frame instead of a negative frame. And what that does, that allows more positive things to come to light and to come naturally and to be realized. When you're focused on negative things, you're focused on everything that's going wrong. Oh shit, this fire came up and I got to go put out this fire. Oh crap, this person didn't show up for work today. Now I need to go figure that out. Oh, like this went wrong, that went wrong. Oh, that deal fell through, blah, blah, blah. There's always going to be stuff that doesn't work out, but if you magnify that, it's not healthy. Whereas if you magnify the things that are going well, it amplifies the way that you show up. It amplifies the way you attract people around you who want to help you and who want to work with you. And that's a big part of it.
And then that's really, really an interesting point, Allen, because I interview a lot of successful people on the Bear Talk show, and actually that's one of the most common habits I have seen in like basically all of the guys and girls I have interviewed. It has been this daily gratitude ritual they have, and as many of them say, like, it's impossible to be fearful, it's impossible to be angry, it's impossible to be sad when you are thankful for what you have, right? So that's a really, really strong point you're making there.
Totally.
What do you do yourself with regards to the thankful ritual? Like one of the things I have found in myself when I do it, sometimes it can be a bit repeating, because sometimes in your life you just have some things that you're really grateful for, and then you can maybe on different days you will repeat the same thing. Do you have a ritual to kind of prevent that, or how does your thankful ritual look like?
Yeah, so I've actually fallen into that trap myself. Like I would say the same thing morning after morning and just on repeat. I'm thankful for, this, that, the other. And then I would be thankful for this, that, the other, again and again and again. And it just started losing its feel. So one way to get over and above that and beyond that is it's simple. And I've actually learned this from Marie Forleo. Is she told me, Allen, when you write down what you're grateful for in the morning, you can fall into this trap. But instead of writing down like 3 things that you're grateful for every morning, write down 1 thing you're grateful for and 3 reasons why. And what that does is that allows you to pick 1 small thing and then amplify the reasons why it's so beneficial.
That is awesome advice. Really, I haven't thought about it that way, and that's a really, really strong advice for sure, Allen.
Yes.
So 3 good rituals for people to start out. So let's take back a step and go back to the self journal. You guys have achieved major success with the self journal. What's the story behind the self journal, and what's the status? Where are you guys now with your journey with this company?
Oh, well, thank you. So we started out on Kickstarter, and we raised $323,000. And this was 2 years ago. 2 years ago this month, actually. And from that point, we built a team. We've built a very large team, actually. We now have 10 people on our team internally, and then a total of 23 that include freelancers, contractors, etc. that help us with that. Since the Kickstarter campaign, we've won the Shopify Build a Business competition. We brought in an internal product team to help us launch new products. And our end goal is to take over the office environment. We want to be in the office that you work in on a daily basis, and we want to do a few things. We want to make you more focused. We want to make you more productive, and we want to elevate the experience in your office environment to a beneficial one. We spend a majority of our lives in the office. Why not make it beautiful in some place that you want to spend more time in?
That's a really strong argument for sure, and you have already experienced so much success with the self journal, so that should also give you the foundation to actually build upon that, I guess.
Yes. Yeah.
And how about the self journal? How did it came to be? I mean, you started out with your partner, business partner, Cathryn Avery. How did you guys meet each other, and what's the story behind the self journal?
So Cathryn and I, we met in an entrepreneur program online, and in that program there was 650 students, and about 8 of us broke away for Monday night calls to make sure that, hey, how are you making out with the program? What's working for you? What are you working on? What can we help you with? Blah, blah, blah. And what we found was that out of the 8 people that were on that Monday night call, 2 of us were taking action, Cathryn and myself.
That's a good way to pick the right people, I guess, for your team, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we actually didn't start out as business partners, but we started out as accountability partners. And for 1 year, we would hold each other accountable. So we held each other accountable through the program that we were going through and through our businesses that we had started running. So we would email each other every morning. Hey, I'm working on this. I'm working on that. What did you complete? And then that's how it evolved. It took us about a year from being accountability partners to finally going into business together. Now, we didn't go into business as Best Self. We went into business as a company called HomeVerve. And HomeVerve was a company that sourced products from China, white labeled them, and then resold them on Amazon. And Cathryn was the branding, and I was the marketing arm. So that's how we started. And from us running both of our individual companies and this company together, we needed a way to keep structure in our life, to keep us accountable to ourselves, to make sure that we're focused on the highest leverage activities in both businesses on a daily basis, because it was just the 2 of us running 2 companies. And that's through mentors, through conferences, through books, through seminars, through webinars, through a bunch of training and different groups and questions and interviews. We've sort of figured out what worked and what didn't. And what came at the end of that was a blank moleskin with a framework that we've put in place to make sure that we were on track to hitting our goals and being as focused and productive as possible. And from there, we said, I'm tired of writing in a blank moleskin every day. Why don't we produce these for ourselves? And we went to go get a couple of friends' feedback to see if they would be interested in helping us fund this little project. And they said 3 things. 1, how many can I get? How quickly can I get them? And can I invest? And we're like, oh, wow. So I guess you guys like this. That's
a pretty good sign, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we ended up going to Kickstarter to launch this product. And we're still doing the Amazon business. And we just wanted to launch this product under the Amazon business company that we were running. And the Kickstarter took off. Cathryn called me on a Sunday after the Kickstarter had ended and said, I don't want to do this Amazon thing anymore. And I said, great, me either. Let's sell it. So we ended up selling that business, and now we focus pretty much full time on Best Self.
That is an awesome story, really, and also goes to show how strong a product you have, and as I said, I really like the product as well. So congratulations on creating that, Allen. One question I want to ask you, like after this, I guess, is, I mean, it's really amazing that you guys found each other in an entrepreneurial community. That's really great, and also goes to show how strong it can be, like to building online, to building relationships and finding the right people to hang out with, right? One thing I want to ask you with regards to this, Allen, is I know a lot of people who are starting out a company are really struggling to decide whether they want to start out on their own or if they want to do it with a business partner, right? What have
Sure.
your experience with with Cathryn and like working with a business partner, and how have you guys structured your work to basically leverage each other's strengths to maximum output of productivity, I would say?
Yeah. So I'll answer that question with Cathryn and I did not start out as business partners. We started out as accountability partners,
Yeah.
which is a huge difference. When people start out as business partners right from the get-go, then they finally figure out, well, this person has this bad trait, or this person doesn't really do this that well, or so on and so forth. Cathryn and I were pretty much working together to help each other in each other's businesses. So we knew what our strengths were. We knew what each other's weaknesses were. We knew how we complemented one another before going into business together. So that was and is a tremendous part of the partnership. Now, going to dive into what if someone wants to start business with a partner, I would say be extremely clear with what your strengths are. Be extremely honest with yourself with what your weaknesses are. Like Cathryn is very meticulous in her standards and her quality. Me, I'm more sloppy, and I'll be the first one to admit it. I'm sloppy. I just want to get stuff out there and get going, because what I care about is taking action. And just as long as I'm taking action, I know things are moving forward. So we complement each other with that. And Cathryn also does take action. So it works very, very well. So how do we structure it so we don't get in each other's way? One, Cathryn is pretty much head of product. I'm head of marketing. So you have those two arms of the business right there. And Cathryn creates the products, and I will market them. And we both have teams underneath us to help us do each. So that's one way that we structure our business to help us leverage our time and be as productive as possible. And it also helped us grow as quickly as we did.
And that's a really, really good layover to actually my next question, Alan, and a really good answer as well. Because as you said, I mean, you guys are scaling now. You have achieved major success, and you are going more worldwide than previously you have been before. I mean, how many countries have you sold the self-journal in now?
Hundreds of countries. I've lost track, but it's hundreds of countries. So much so where we actually have 3 fulfillment centers. We have one in the US, one in the UK, and then one in Australia, just to handle the product demands on everyone globally.
That is awesome, buddy. Really, that is amazing. And I mean, with regards to this, I mean, there have been a journey for you with regards to your company, and you are in the scaling business now, where you are going really, really worldwide. And my question goes to say, like, what have your major learnings been from this scaling process? I mean, you and Cathryn started out like just the two of you, and I mean now you are a team of more than 20 people. What have been your major learnings in this journey scaling the business?
Sure. The major learnings. Well, you bring on you bring on new challenges. You start to develop new skills, because my mantra now is what got me here won't get me there. And when we did start, it was just the two of us. And I think the first thing that you need to do is, if you want to scale above $1 million, is you need people. And how do you find people? How do you get people? And how do you train people so that they can join you in your team and your culture and help you get to where you want to go, but you also help them get to where they want to go. And it's that relationship. Now, to figure out who you have to hire, there's a simple system that you put in place. First, you figure out what task you're doing. and figure out if you can eliminate those tasks. Can you remove them to get all together? Because a lot of times we fall into the trap of just doing something for the sake of doing it. And that's not productive. And that's not efficient. And you have bigger things that you can be doing with your time. So can I eliminate this task altogether? Okay. If you can't eliminate it, can I automate this? Are there tools or systems out there that can automate this task for me? Tools such as If This Then That, Zapier. There's a slew of productivity tools that help connect software together so that you can run more efficiently. And that can be as simple as just setting up a filter. Simple as setting up a filter in your Gmail account to filter any spam or help sort your emails that you have coming in. So that's automation. Next is systematize. Is if I'm going to be doing something, can I put a system in place to make this as easy as possible? And the way that I like to think about this, if I'm going to do something at least once a month, I want a system. If someone on my team is going to do something at least once a month, they need to have a system for that process. And what this does, this allows you to have a step-by-step guide so nothing is forgotten. Nothing is left out of place, and so it keeps you performing at the highest level possible. Because when you're working on stuff and you're trying to implement and innovate and start pushing the company forward, and then you need to do a mundane task, sometimes you'll go through that task and you'll forget a step, and then it's not completed, and then you go back to the project that you're working on to push the business forward, and the task that you could have had a simple punch list for is holding the process up, and it just slows your team down and slows you down and doesn't allow the mental bandwidth for you to focus on the highest leverage things. And it's also important that you have SOPs in place so you can hand this off to people when you bring them on. So the last piece is delegate. So we went delete, so remove or eliminate, automate with systems, systematize, and now the last one's delegate. And if you have the business systematized and SOPs in place and a punch list on how to do a specific task, you can now delegate that to the next in charge, the next person who comes in. So when you're just running your solo business by yourself or with a team member like it was Cathryn and I, there was two of us, this is how we expanded the business so quickly. It's because we automated and systematized everything. And then we were able to figure out, okay, I need operations, or I need marketing, or I need customer service, or I need product. And we hired the best possible candidate first, and then they could easily just jump into whatever we were doing in the business and just take over for us.
That is awesome. I mean, that is just right there. You have the whole system for the scaling process, and I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs in our listening audience. So I guess they will be thrilled about having this system in place to actually go and scale the business, Allen. It's really great. I mean, one thing we haven't discussed, we have just elaborated a bit upon it. The whole Kickstarter process, and Kickstarter is not that big in Denmark, but I mean globally it's a very, very big way to actually introduce your product to the market and get a lot of buy-in before you actually start, I mean, mass producing the process. I mean, you guys had a really, really successful Kickstarter campaign, and as far as I remember, your goal was like $20,000 or something dollars, right?
It was $15,000 US.
Yeah, and you ended up like doing 322K, which was obviously a really, really huge success. I mean, why did you go for the introduction through Kickstarter, and what strategies did you use to achieve such a major success with your campaign?
Sure. The reason why we chose Kickstarter was because we didn't validate the market, and we needed to, and we also didn't have the capital to produce, 30,000 journals or 10,000 journals. And producing 10,000 journals or 30,000 journals is pretty expensive, and we didn't want to run the risk of producing something that we weren't sure of. So that's why we went to Kickstarter. And we chose $15,000 as an external goal because we wanted to make it low enough where people would have buy-in, where they would say, oh, okay, that seems like a reasonable amount for this company to hit. I will go ahead and back. Whereas if you have $1 million goal, someone's going to go on that and say, oh, $1 million, they're not going to hit that. Why should I even bother backing it? Because they're never going to hit their goal anyway.
Yeah. So
that was our external goal. Our internal goal was actually $200,000. And in the early Kickstarter video, we had one prototype made, and in the video, it shows the goal that we had written in the prototype of the self-journal. Grow our Kickstarter to 200,000 in backing.
Wow.
Which was interesting because we didn't want people to see that in the Kickstarter video. So we just did some editing and cut it out. But that's why we chose 15,000. Now we were able to get funded, meaning hit that 15,000 mark in 28 hours. And the way that we hit that goal and hit that benchmark was through, get this, 3 months of planning where we set a goal and then worked our way backwards so we knew what we had to do each and every day to get there. So it's very simple. 1, build a list. How do you build a list? You produce great content and then syndicate the content out. Have great lead magnets. So that's that. You can run a giveaway, and then you can also do a product launch formula, which is what we did into the Kickstarter campaign.
Awesome. And I mean, what channels did you use to build this huge list and actually get a buy-in from a lot of people who wanted the self-journal when you guys started out?
Sure. So the channels that we used to build the list, our list was only 3,700 when we launched the campaign.
Wow.
But it was 3,700 people who were really interested in what we were working on and the product specifically. And how we did that was we built a blog, we wrote great blog posts, and then we syndicated them out on Facebook groups, on channels like Medium, on other platforms like that, on Reddit, and etc. And that's how we went about building our list.
That is really, really valuable advice for anyone thinking about doing a Kickstarter campaign or any of the other crowdfunding sites currently available, right? So, Allen, I think I'm going to change gear a bit and ask you maybe a couple of questions more related to you as a person, I guess. We have heard a lot of that about the self-journal now and your journey with that company. But one thing that struck me when I kind of read the story about you and the whole company, which is really amazing, the journey you guys have been on. But I mean, for you personally as well, this must have been a pretty crazy ride, right? Because the way, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I read that like less than 4 years ago, you were dead broke and basically you had nothing, right? And now you have achieved so much success with the self-journal and worldwide recognition and getting mentored by some of the top people in the entire business world. I mean, What has this experience been like for you personally?
It's been unreal. It's been tremendous. Cathryn and we just spoke at an event down in Austin, Texas, and it's funny. It's because whenever we like tell our story and go from like, oh yeah, here we've done all this, it's hard to believe because we've come so far so fast, and it's very interesting. It's just really interesting to think about.
It definitely must have been, Allen. And one question I have, in regards to this, is maybe, if you were to go into a time machine and travel back, basically, to yourself, like 3.5 years ago, when you started out the journey with the Self Journal and Best Self Company, if with your current experience you have now, were to give yourself like 3 advice that would make this crazy ride go smoother or better or just more enjoyable, what would these 3 advice be?
If I was to give myself any advice, it would probably be start now. That would be the advice that I give myself.
And that makes a lot of sense to go that route, because we know that perfection is the enemy of action, right?
Absolutely.
Has that been one of your like major strength during this whole process, that you have been able to take so much action?
Yeah, I think it's my core strength. Someone asked me the other day, "Oh, Allen, what's like your one thing? Like the one thing that you're like a master at?" And I don't consider myself a master at anything really. I'm good at marketing. I can understand vision. I can put together strategies and funnels and think about a customer journey and relate to them via psychology on how they're feeling about certain messaging. I can understand product and what makes a product unique or a business unique and why people should care about it. I can do paid traffic. So can a ton of other people, right? I'm not the best at any of those things that I just mentioned, but what I know that I am the best at is that I wake up and I take action each and every day.
That is solid advice for sure, Allen. One question I have, as you said, that you speak with a lot of really influential people now and have been on a really crazy journey and have won the Shopify's Build a Business contest and so on and so forth. I guess you're living the dream at this point. Is that correctly to assume?
Yeah. I am. I have everything to be grateful for. I'm pretty content and happy with everything in my life, but at the same time, I'm a big believer in abundance. So I always try to push myself to a higher level, to higher standards, and to experience more with this limited amount of time that I have on Earth. That
is really, really interesting. That you mentioned that as well. My question actually, Allen, with regards to this was, a lot of people are really, really afraid to go after their dreams, and for some bullshit reasons, oftentimes, in my opinion anyway. Have you had any role models or any influential people in your early years, that has impacted your mindset with regards to actually going after the goals that you have for life?
So I didn't realize this until very recently. I didn't really have that many positive role models when I was younger. I sort of went to the beat of my own drum. I didn't really follow anybody else's rules. Wasn't really very good in I don't know, a lot of things. I was always entrepreneurial minded. I was always ambitious. I was always hungry. And at the same time, I didn't really have someone who helped propel me or give me the guidance that I needed. One person who was beneficial in sort of in a different way was my boss, who actually put me in such a negative environment in my career role when I was just starting in my career after university, that forced me to go out and take a leap of faith in myself and into this game called entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so more like a negative role model, basically.
Yes, but actually, I was spiteful. I was angry at him for a little while for doing that to me, and then recently I've sort of come around to the fact that, hey, if it wasn't for him, I would have never went out on my own. So I'm actually pretty grateful that he did that.
That's a very, very, very good thing to see, and obviously, one of the strong traits I see in very successful people is usually they are able to turn something that could potentially be seen as negative into actually more of an asset or a more positive thing. So that's really, really interesting. And speaking about role models, I mean, as I have mentioned in the intro and a couple of times during this podcast, I mean, you have been able to get some advice and mentoring from some really cool, successful people like Tony Robbins and Tim Ferriss, just to mention a few. I mean, just the specific, those two, I mean, are really, really big names, and I think a lot of people would love to, or die more or less, to get mentoring from them, right? My question goes to, like, what's the best advice that they gave to you, and what have you done, like, on a more concrete level to actually implement the wisdom you got from these people?
It's really interesting. It's an interesting question, because I get so much from so many different people. It's like trying to narrow it down to one thing is extremely hard, because everyone has a diverse set and a diverse way that they impact you. Tony obviously makes you reach for something so much higher than what you're comfortable with. So he's always telling you to, like, push outside of your comfort zone, think bigger, get out of your own way type of framework. Tim's very, very analytical with, okay, how can I break this hard thing down into something extremely simple? So I kind of like mashing those two together. How can I think bigger than I am right now? And how can I take that big concept that I'm dreaming for myself and for my life and for everyone around me and break that down into something very simple that I can do on a daily basis.
So combining the wisdom of those two can lead to major breakthroughs, it sounds.
Yes, and there was other people there who I've been mentored by. Marie Forleo's one of them. She is extremely smart, and she wants nothing more than to help you and see you succeed. I've also been mentored by Russell Simmons, and Russell Simmons I had one way of thinking that I had for him of who I thought he was. And when I met him, it was completely different. He was very Zen-like, very centered, very peaceful. And he was able to help let everyone chill as far as where they are. One thing that he said that resonated was, you only have one seat in life. Don't worry about what that person's seat is or if this person's seat's better. You have your seat. Get comfortable in it.
That's a solid advice for sure. I think a lot of people can really learn a ton from that. Just actually focusing more on their own journey rather than how other people are faring on their journey, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Allen, Awesome answers, really. I have some short questions I usually ask in the end, with more regards to you, your personal life, your habits and routines, and obviously the first one, I guess, needs to be asked. I mean, what does your morning routine look like? We've talked quite a lot about morning routines, so what does your morning routine, maybe your ideal morning routine, look like?
Sure. So my morning routine consists of waking up, having a cup of coffee with my wife before she leaves for work. Then I will do a breathing exercise that's similar to like a Wim Hof technique. Then I will do a meditation, either a 15, 20, or 30-minute meditation, depending on what mood I'm in. Then I will do a workout. I'll either go for a run, normally 3 miles, or I'll go to the gym and lift. Both, while I'm doing either one of those, I'm either listening to a book or a podcast, but more times than not, I'm listening to an audiobook. Then I'll come home, I'll shower. Sometimes I'll eat breakfast. If I'm intermediate fasting, then I won't. Then I'll just dive into my highest leverage activity of the day, and that's my morning routine. It's actually pretty simple these days.
Yeah.
It's evolved over the years.
Yeah, I guess it's something that you need to perfect and master for your entire lifetime, right?
Yeah, it's always going to change, and I'm sure in a couple months it might change again. You know.
Exactly. I can say from personal experience that one of the big changes you're gonna get is that having a baby kind of screws up a bit with your genes.
Oh yeah.
Awesome, Allen. One question I need to ask, a follow up to this. I mean, as you said, you meditate quite a bit. Do you have any apps or sound books or anything that you can recommend for this?
Yes. So one app that I highly recommend for anybody, whether you're a beginner or an expert, is an app called Headspace.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep, and there's one that I do on Spotify by Wayne Dyer, and it is called Mindful Meditation, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I can find it. I Am Wishes Fulfilled Meditation. That's what it's called.
Okay. Awesome. So and as you said, you listen to a lot of audiobooks and guess you read a lot of books as well. I mean, which books have you recommended most to other people for them to read or listen to?
The first book that I recommend the most is a book called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. That's probably my number one recommended book to everybody. Most people who ask me aren't high-level entrepreneurs or business owners or anything like that, and even if they are, I would recommend it. But that's just a good book for society in general.
What's the topic, or what's the selling points for this book?
Sure. So you have two options in life. You can either be a drifter or you can be a non-drifter. Here's the thing. Everybody you interact with wants you to be a drifter. The only way you're going to live a life of abundance is if you're a non-drifter. So you're constantly having a negative force pull you into drifting on a daily basis. How you combat that negative force through willpower and self-determination and through daily action will make you a non-drifter.
Really, really interesting. That sounds really good. Do you have any other cool books to recommend?
Yes, The One Thing. That's a great business book. Touches a lot on what we've talked about today.
Which author?
Jay Papasan, I believe it is.
All right. And that can you elaborate a bit about what's special about that book?
So what's special about that book? That book is special because it talks about distilling down really what's important and focusing on the most important thing that you can be to maximize your time, to maximize your happiness, and to get the most out of your life.
That is a big promise. I have added it on my to-read list already.
Oh, it's tremendous, and there's a guy who you should follow who's sort of spearheading the one thing movement. His name is Jeff Woods. He's really sharp. I actually just had lunch with him. There's the dog, and I just had actually breakfast with him last week while I was in Austin.
Cool. I will definitely check him out, Alan. The next question I have, I guess, because I mean this is a success podcast, and I'm interviewing a lot of successful people, and one of the questions I always ask is basically, I mean, what do you do to celebrate your successes? I mean, it could be personally, it could be professionally with your business, but what habits do you have to actually celebrate that you have achieved some of your breakthroughs or some of your goals?
So this is very interesting, and I've been talking with my friends about this pretty often. As how do we celebrate our success? Well, because we're high achievers, and when we hit a goal, then the next thing that gets us going is to set another goal, and we just keep going into that cycle. So it's pretty hard for me to set a something up to celebrate a win. But I think what I do very well is celebrate over a good meal. I love food. I love a good glass of wine. I love traveling. So if I can do one or all of those things at the same time, I consider that like a little celebration.
That sounds like an awesome way to celebrate a win for sure, and I guess a lot of other people does as well. I only have like 2 short questions left, which are the usual head scratchers I finish with. So I hope you're up for that.
Sure.
The first one is basically if you had the opportunity to send one text message, but only one, to all people in the entire world, what would that text message say and why?
So it would be like a little snippet. It would say, "Life is abundant. Take a chance on your dreams. You only have one shot."
And why would your message say that?
Why? Why? Because one, life is abundant. A lot of people live in scarcity and live in scarcity mindset. But if they change that mindset, they'll be surprised about what they can accomplish and achieve, and what possibilities there are. Take a chance on your dreams is because why not? What other chance is there? There's either your dreams or fear. I'd rather take a chance on my dreams rather than live in fear. And then there's you only have one shot, which is we're only on this planet once.
That is awesome. Awesome text message, Alan. I'm looking forward to receiving it, hopefully very soon. Actually, it's funny. I had one of the guests on, and he said, well, if I were to send one message, I would basically say, buy my shit, because it's a hell of a sales channel, right?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome, Alan. It's been really, really great to have you on, man. I only have the last one left, and my last question I have for you, and we actually discussed this a little bit earlier on, but maybe we can take it again and see if there's another answer now, I guess, because my last question would be this simple little one called, what's the best advice you have ever received? And if you were to ask, is this professionally or personally? I mean, it's whatever advice comes to you first, I would say.
What's the best advice I ever received? Best advice I ever received. Wow, that's interesting. I don't know why I'm being stumped on this. Maybe it's just, man. Maybe it's because I've received such good advice over the years. I don't know. Best advice I ever received.
If it helps your process, you can take 2, but only 2, right?
Yeah. Let's stick to 1. Best advice I ever received probably came from a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, where it taught you the value of purchasing assets rather than liabilities. And that is fundamental if you want to grow anything in life, as far as making an impact, number 1, or just building wealth for you and your family, or setting you and your family up for longevity. That's probably the best advice that I've ever received.
And it's an awesome book as well, and I can highly recommend that. Really, I think he really nails a lot of cool financial advice in that book that a lot of people would be very, very beneficial to have for sure.
Totally.
Allen, it's been a complete pleasure to have you on, man. I have really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm really, really looking forward to getting this out to the audience, because I know that, they will get so much from this conversation. The last thing I have basically, right, is if they want to reach out to you, where should they do it, like on social media or other platforms?
Yeah. Well, one, I wanted to say thank you for having me on here. It was a great time. Where can people reach me? Facebook, you can reach me. You can reach me on my personal site, allenbrouwer.com. That's where I blog about marketing and a little bit about what we talked about today. And also on turnonthehustle.com. That is a community that I put together where you can pretty much find me, my website, and my personal Facebook account all at that location. And if you want to see what the business is working on as far as the products that we're making, go to bestself.co.
Awesome. And one thing actually I want to just briefly touch before we end this podcast, Allen, because I read recently that you actually do mentoring. There are a few selected very lucky people who you are actually doing some mentoring for at this point. Where can people learn more about this opportunity?
Yeah, you can learn about the mentoring opportunity at turnoffthebullshit.com. So
turn on the hustle and turn off the bullshit.
That's it, man.
You have some strong names for sure.
Yep, that's it. So yeah, you can learn more about the mentoring there.
And just to clarify, I know that a lot of our listeners will be very interested in hearing this, but you also do have some requirements, right? Can you just briefly name what it would require for them to get you as a mentor?
Yeah, so you would have to be doing business of $100,000 to $1 million a year. You need to want to transition from business operator to business owner. And what we'll focus on are scaling. How we're going to scale your business beyond yourself to get yourself out of the day-to-day operations, so you can really focus on building a business that doesn't operate with you in it. And so you can grow it to scale it and do whatever you want with it, whether you want to sell it or whether you want it to be something that you hand off to your kids later on. The whole process is to grow and scale the business beyond what you're doing currently.
And I think our podcast goes to show that you are definitely the guy to talk to for this. Honestly, it's been great, man, and a lot of really, really concrete and practical advice, and I have really enjoyed our conversation.
Well, thank you very much, and me too. I enjoyed this conversation as well.
Awesome, buddy. Take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So guys, once again, this is Bjørn. Thanks for listening to the podcast. I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed Allen, and I hope you enjoyed learning from a really, really successful entrepreneur. If you are not familiar with this show, I hope you have been enjoying and want to listen to it more. If you are not familiar with the Danish language, you probably are going to have a hard time understanding much of it. But I can refer you to another episode in English that is really great. So if you are English native and not able to understand any of the Danish episodes, I will definitely recommend you visit that you visit the webpage at beartalk.dk and listen to episode 15 with the great entrepreneur Eric Edmeades, motivational speaker as well. It's a really, really great episode, among my best episodes I think I made, and it's really, really great. So if you are into listening more of this, listen to that episode, and if not, I really hope you enjoyed the conversation with Allen, and I look forward to seeing you again once again next time.